Hello and welcome to the Smart Garden Guide YouTube channel. Today I'll be talking about what you do with phalaenopsis orchid flower spikes once the blooms have finished. So this is my phalaenopsis orchid, or moth orchid as they're commonly called, that I bought from the store about 5 months ago. As you can see, the blooms are gone. They've all fallen off in the last few weeks, and now I'm left with this flower spike. And the question is, what do I do with it, and how do I get the orchid to flower again, to produce more blooms as quickly as possible? Well, the short answer is, if you've got a healthy phalaenopsis orchid, the best thing to do is to cut the flower spike part way up, and by doing this, there's around about a 50% chance that there will be more blooms that develop from the same flower spike. They might, the flower spike might grow an offshoot out to the side and produce more buds, or it might grow up from the end and produce more blooms that way. This is a good way of encouraging your orchid to bloom again quite quickly, sometimes within 6 or 8 weeks, rather than waiting maybe 6 to 9 months for a new flower spike to develop from the same plant. But you don't just want to cut the flower spike anywhere. There are a few important things to take into consideration, and if you cut it in the right place, you do increase the chances of more blooms developing. So the best place to cut phalaenopsis orchid flower spike, certainly in my experience, is just above the top node on the flower spike. So the flower spike does have these wee bumps, and it's from these bumps, or nodes as they're called, that new growth will develop. So what you want to do is just count up the nodes until you get to the top one, and then you want to cut the flower spike about 1 inch above that top node, just below where the first flower was. So as you can see, these wee things are where the flowers have fallen off. So you don't want to cut away up here, you want to cut just this node here that you can see. I'm going to zoom in there. This node right here, I'm going to cut just about 1 inch above that, and then hopefully you stand the best chance of getting your orchid to bloom again. So just one point to note, I keep saying flower spike, a lot of people say stem. Not that it really matters, but the stem of the phalaenopsis orchid is actually down here where the leaves meet. It's quite short, and you'd hardly think it is a stem at all. This here looks much more like a stem, but the technical term for that is the flower spike. Just to clarify that for anybody watching. So what are you going to need before you start trimming your orchid's flower spike? Well, first of all, you just want to make sure that your orchid's healthy, okay? We're asking this orchid to flower again, to produce more blooms, and we want to make sure that the orchid's healthy and able to do that, okay? So this orchid is nice and healthy. It's got nice bright green leaves. They're shiny and healthy looking, and it's in top condition and ready to go, ready to produce more blooms. So it'll very happily rebloom, and you should definitely cut the spike, as I've said, just above the top node. However, if your orchid is not in such great shape, if the leaves are yellowing or wilting badly or wrinkled, or you've got root rot, or just if the plant looks particularly unhappy, it's going to have to expend quite a lot of energy in flowering again, and you might be better saying, no, I'm not going to get the orchid to flower again, cut the flower spike off at the base and focus on bringing the orchid back to good health. Because phalaenopsis orchids can live for years, in fact decades. They can bloom once or twice per year during this time. So if you're playing the long game, you might be better making sure that your orchid is as healthy as possible. The other thing to watch for is this flower spike here is nice and green and healthy, but sometimes, and I'm not actually too sure why, sometimes the top will go brown and it'll just die. Okay, so sometimes just a section of it will go brown and die. Sometimes quite a bit of it will go brown and die. There's no point in cutting above this and expecting it to flower again. It's not going to work. So If your top node is brown or around it is brown, forget about it. You can try cutting it lower down, you may still have success, but if it's brown, it's dead, there's no getting it back. Okay, what are you going to need to cut your phalaenopsis orchid spike? Well, dead easy. You're just going to need a sharp pair of scissors or a pruning tool, or alternatively a razor blade would do fine. You want to make sure that whatever you use is sterile, so some rubbing alcohol or putting the blade under a flame is a good idea. It just kills any bacteria and make sure that you don't introduce disease to your orchid. So, well, I suppose that's a good question. Yeah, before you trim it, you want to remove any stake and any little clips that you have around the spike. You can remove the stake safely, and then we've got our flower spike here. We just take our scissors and we just want to cut just above the top node, just like that. Okay. Now, once you've got the orchid flower spike cut, you can just leave it, let it be, and the cut will dry out and it'll be absolutely fine. One good tip actually is to just dab a little bit of cinnamon on the cut end. Cinnamon is a natural fungicide, and it can actually reduce the risk of infection setting into your orchid, although to be honest, it's quite unlikely for the end of the flower spike to be a source of infection, but you know, I've found quite good success with just dabbing a little bit of cinnamon on any cut ends or cut parts of phalaenopsis orchids. It does seem to work quite well. I suppose another couple of questions are, what happens if you've got a double spike orchid? Do you apply this technique to both flower spikes? The answer is no. It does take a lot of the energy of the orchid to rebloom, so you're much better actually just focusing on one flower spike. So my advice would be cut one of them off at the base, cut the other one off just above the top node. You're much more likely to have success in getting your orchid to rebloom from the same spike. If you like this video, please visit me over at smartgardenguide.com.